Exciting news! Exclusive interview with the guy at the helm of Adobe Firefly, John Nack. A lot coming at you. This is about to get intense. How you
Okay,
doing?
yeah, I'm well. Thanks for having me, Deke. Hi, everybody. So yeah, I thought we could just jump right in, show some of the stuff that we're working on, and again, I always have to like put the caution tape around this, which is like things theoretically may change, they may never ship, who knows? But we can, kind of jump into it and show some of the stuff that's in flight. So as you'll see here, this is just a notional thing the team's been playing with, and this definitely would, what I would argue, needs to be renamed. So it's called asset generation for some reason. I don't
Right.
know. They always said like if this dated reference, but like if HP made sushi, they'd call it cold dead fish. So it's like just these poetic names that spring from technologists. So probably not called asset generation, although that could be its own interesting thing. But let me jump in here. And again, this is just experimental. So if you click on this module, much like the recolor vector module, you'll see in here a bunch of presets. And these are all simple vector shapes, nothing fancy about them, which is kind of the point. Of course, in theory, you could upload your own. You could conceivably do stuff like searching Adobe stock for free vectors. There are a ton of those, by the way. I didn't even know that. But there's a lot you can just download right now. And if I let this play, you'll see, go ahead and pick this guy. And then it's being stylized according to various presets created in Firefly. So taking the generative model and applying it to the outlines of this shape, much like you would do with text. So going back here, choosing this sort of stag head, and again with these different techniques. None of these are
Before I let you go too far on this one,
yeah.
this is not available yet. This is like
Correct. And
this could fall into the category of never available. I mean, it's just really not
absolutely.
available right now. Okay,
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
because it's wicked cool.
Cool. Well, actually, so it's a little chicken and egg because we want to show people when we've done enough work to get feedback, but not so much that, hey, if this is a bad idea, we've wasted a bunch of time. But I gave a little preview of this the other day and got really positive responses. People seem excited about it. It seems like a very natural extension of what we're already doing. So yeah, that's a really great sign for the team. And I came from the world of being a customer who just ranted at Adobe all the time. So finally, they hired me for some reason. I think that way they can ignore me safely. It's like, well, here's some money, and then we don't even have to be polite about it. But
You can take this stuff. I mean, these are masked objects theoretically that you could drag and drop into a composition. They could be pixels that you drag and drop into Photoshop or something along those lines, or they could be vectors that you drag and drop into Illustrator. Although theoretically they start as vectors as well.
Yeah, they definitely start as vectors. So what you're touching on are a couple of the interesting technical challenges that I think would be important to solve to make this actually practical. So here, and again, this is just a video, as you can see. I didn't have a live build I could play with. But what I'm guessing is actually happening here is these are all bitmaps. These are all just, square bitmaps. So really, to make these useful, I think you'd want one of two things. One, you'd almost certainly want transparency. So, you don't just get like this deer with a huge white square. You want just the deer, right? Presumably.
Right.
And then the other is, depending on the styling, if it's something sort of like flat like this, you probably want that vectorized, right? So then you could actually scale it. So those are independent technical challenges which would need to get addressed, I think, to make this really work, which is one of the many reasons it's not shipping yet. But at least just as a first thumb in the wind, like directionally, is this something people would care about? I think this is a nice signal that, yeah, actually, if we could get those things right, which we want to get right for a bunch of other reasons, then this would be a nice way to apply them.
Yeah, and I think this has enormous practical value because this way people aren't just there's a certain amount of AI that I think is a little bit daunting in terms of what do you actually make of what you're creating, as opposed to like you just keep working on a prompt until you get something you really like, which is not really the most artistic process, the most creative process that we're used to, whereas this is asset creation. I mean, obviously, which I think would be really useful. And then the person is in charge, the artist is in charge of the compositional process.
Yeah, that's right. This would be one way to do that. And so here, think of these are all like little primitives, right? So hopefully folks are familiar with things like libraries in Photoshop and Illustrator, where you can create your own assets and park them there. You can search for things that other people have created. You can then drag them onto your canvas or your artboard, and you can do stuff with them. And so in principle, something like this could work in the same way, where you're dragging things in, but either they're sort of primitives that you're stylizing, or they could just be things you're making on the fly, right? So you could say, oh, well, I want, the head of a deer looking to the left, and you want to pair it with a certain style, and then you want to have that element exist on your canvas. Or potentially, you could sketch something out and you could transform it into that. So all of that is very hand-wavy, literally. I don't speak, of course, for the product teams as to, what they think a priority would be. Obviously, we want folks' feedback on that. But in principle, that's how I would imagine it working. Let me actually, I'd say go off script, except we don't have a script, right? It's you and me. So it's where the day takes you. So there's a thing called ControlNet. And if anybody is still following my blog, which is statistically, the few, the proud, someone's doing it, just mentioning it's a technology. It's not really a specific model or anything. It's not like, oh, this is a Midjourney thing or a Firefly thing or a Stable Diffusion thing. It's just a bunch of techniques you can use to condition the generation. So kind of like you're saying, Deke, today we're in this serendipitous world where you get fun, sometimes random things, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not, but it's a lot of, to me, it's like kind of a wishing well, right? You make a wish, you throw it down the well, you wait some number of seconds, and like something comes back. And that can be fun, but it can also be a little frustrating if you're trying to do actual production work. And so ControlNet, among other techniques, is a set of mechanisms by which you could get more control over exactly what comes out. And so just me screwing around with something somebody put on, Hugging Face or Google Colab, I went in and, let me just load these up, and I took some, stock vector art that I just found on one of the sites out there, and fed it into ControlNet, and I said something, colorful type on a wooden background, right? So as you go between those, just with this very, very simple input and that very simple prompt, I got this interesting combination. And really, you can kind of go nuts. The thing that, frankly, sort of freaks me out about this one is there was a little, you might remember there was a little vector light bulb up at the top. And somehow it knows what's going on. It knows that like a light bulb is a bulb and it glows and it casts warm light, which diffuses on wood. And so just by typing something about, rusty metal letters and background, it actually, and then I might have mentioned light bulb, I don't even remember, but it gave that treatment to that area. So here, by providing that seed, you're getting a much more directed composition. Now, obviously, it's imperfect in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of research yet to be done. But this is something that's emerged really only in the last couple of months as a way of fine-tuning the generative process. Yeah, just this morning, I can't resist showing this because it's so outlandish. Sorry, no one needs to hear Smash Mouth probably ever, but certainly at this.
I can imagine that part. Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually, I think one of the Photoshop QE guys used to be in that band, which is amazing. But this is like delightfully just nightmarish. And I don't know if they meant it to be nightmare fuel, but like the fact that it is, it's like pyroclastic horror shows. It's like what an alien would think a beer commercial is supposed to be, which is basically what it is, right? It's these generative models.
Just so you know, what you are watching is a pared-down version of my exclusive interview with John Nack to watch the entire thing, which includes more of John's personal insights into the current state of AI inside Adobe and out. Join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/DekeNow. And now, back to the conversation in progress.
So kind of like we were seeing with this vector demo, if you can give the system some primitives, it could just be a shape, it could be a piece of text, it could be, a sketch like you saw with ControlNet. Just by taking those cues, it can then sort of interpolate and hallucinate, which I always love, that's the actual term of art, hallucinate things on your behalf that probably map a little more closely to your intention. And so this is yet another way to do it. So instead of using text, instead of using sketch, what if you used 3D objects? And so very, very simple UI, not meant to be obviously what we'll ship, but let this play. And just by dragging in this incredibly simple blob of like you could think it's mashed potatoes, is it rocks? Well, here it's like, well, let's treat it as rocks, and we'll put it on a seashore. And so just to back up for a moment, because it all goes pretty quickly, the idea here is place that, give it a prompt down at the bottom, and now you've actually said, oh, interpret this as a rock, and then kind of fill in other details that would be relevant if this were on a seashore. But of course, you could do something totally different. You could say, well, maybe this is actually a mountain range. And to make the mountain range, I'm going to take this rock and clone it a few times. And then obviously change the camera angle. You could put in other shapes if you want to. these being 3D geometry, they're of course stretchable and very amenable to being scaled and edited. And then once you get a composition you like, you can go in and type in a different prompt, and it will then try to interpret that prompt in the context of these objects. So again, we'll give it a few seconds, and you hit sharing.
I hate to interrupt you because you're doing a masterful job of narrating something you're not doing real time. But
Totally. Yeah, it's all complete. It's smoke and mirrors, right? Because if I try to hit this live, it might crash. Who knows? Right? There's a reason it's not shipping.
I should shut up. Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Doing beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, if you want a longer version, I won't duplicate what everybody's already seen. But yeah, there's a live stream I recorded, and you get the idea. Let me cut over to a different version, which is pretty cool. Which is
wait, did I let you dress that up enough though? The idea is you can take those 3D models, duplicate them, and then I just want to make sure we see it dressed up.
Oh, sure.
Because that's where the AI is really coming in, right?
Yeah. So here they're just going and adding a cylinder, and let me play it again. And I think it's saying something about make a watchtower that's in the Rocky Mountains, and so go ahead and just get the scene roughly composed how you want. And modify the prompt a little bit, and in a second, Rocky Mountains and a beautiful landscape, it will, boom, give you something like that.
I mean, that's amazing. That's inherently amazing. I know there's going to be some pros out there that are doing, you can already do that, you can already do that here. But the fact that, you guys are basically not only wrapping a UI around the thing, which I think a lot of us appreciate, but also you've got some drag and drop controls that you're applying on the fly, so you don't have to get everything set up and use a command line prompt and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because you say command line prompt. So generative AI is such an interesting mixture of super futuristic and also super old school.
Yeah.
I was lying in bed yesterday. My wife thought of some funny idea, and I'm sitting there in Discord on my phone, looking up at the ceiling, / imagine prompt, Linda Hunt wearing a cape, blah, blah, blah. Or just some weird, whatever, weird joke we were making. I just thought it'd be funny to show her. And it's incredible you can do it, but yeah, of course the affordances are so limited. And
it's so DOS-like. I mean, it's very old school in a lot of ways.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of cheat codes. I mean, even we have some of these things in square brackets that we didn't expose to the Firefly UI. But you can give it a little bit more parameterized control. And again, with all that, you have to know how many things do we show in the UI? How many are useful to normal people? It's always a judgment call.
What is a normal people? I know what those are anymore. Yeah,
I know. We just let me show you this one with Christmas tree. I will say a lot of our time, as you would expect, has gone into trying to make it unlikely that people will get something problematic. Let's say,
right?
But having teenage boys is a really helpful way of coming up with problematic things. And with these, they're like, you got cylinders? And I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. But fine, we don't have to talk too much about that. But it is really helpful because they'll be like, hey, did you try spelling it P3NIS? And I'm like, okay, so can edit that out if we want to. But yeah, we try to make it so people get something good and safe for work. But, teenage boys going to be teenage boys. So with this example, we just go in and create some really, really simple shapes. So the fact that there wasn't a building, no problem. Just take a square, stretch it out, rotate a copy, make a wall. Now we've got something sort of Christmas tree-like. And once that's reasonable, you can go down to the prompt bar and type in Christmas tree, and it'll think about it after you hit the generate button. Really, the generation process is super quick. A lot of it is just come up with the scene that you want, and give it a couple seconds, and boom, now you've got a room with a Christmas tree. Obviously stylized. Now, there's no reason you would have to have specifically that cone, right? You could have an actual, honest to God, 3D tree if you wanted to, and you could use that as the cue. Right now, whether that's more effective than something simple, I'm not sure. Like you and I were talking with some of the Inpainting tech, we're habituated to say, well, you have to have these super Baroque, complicated selections that you make with, all these different tools. Maybe you don't. Maybe a loose selection is better, and then you're giving the system more to play with. So that'll be one of the fun sort of experimental things. Here, obviously, needless to say, they're trying to add some presence around the tree, and go ahead and let that think for a second, and give it a moment.
See, this is
And
wild. I mean, this is
Isn't it amazing?
inherently
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
This is people are going to eat this up once it's available. Of course, I mean, right now it's not. You're
Right,
playing
right.
movies, but this is just freakishly awesome.
So Inpainting, this is again just a sneak. It's not in production, but it's definitely in testing. And so just by using a couple really simple techniques, like making a selection with a brush, or by using some of the semantic segmentation stuff, like Photoshop Select Subject, you can get some really powerful results. So here, you mouse over these, and it's just showing you, oh, what if you were to like select this region of this guy? Or with the dog, what if you were to select the background, right? So you can select the subject, or you can invert that. So here I'm going to go try this guy. And I could select the background, but instead I'm just going to select by using the brush. And, as Deke and I were talking, a lot of times, of course, people want to insert something, which is really cool. A lot of times, all you want to do is remove. Now, in this case, I don't want to make the guy bald. I haven't actually tried that, so I'm not going to try it now. But, here I just want to say, like, a colorful beanie. So...
And this is, and I want to stress that this is, a lot of this is analogous to content-aware fill, spot healing, that kind of stuff. This is not.
Right.
This is insert, which is kind of a whole different ballgame. So it's going to generate something inside that space according to your prompt. So here it is,
Yeah. So think of it as content-aware fill, but it's, instead of filling it just with the absence of what was there, now you can like kind of proactively add something
Right.
as the replacement pixels. But if you want, you can just go ahead and hit remove, and you could effectively just try to, I don't know if it'll take background or it'll take more hair, or if it'll take bald head. I guess we could find out. But you can also then go and edit the mask, right? If you're like, that's pretty cool, but actually, I want to, select the background instead. This probably doesn't make a ton of sense. Let me go ahead and cancel that and select the background here. So Davis Brown is a great designer. He happens to be Russell Brown's son.
Russell Brown,
and so it's like, I love, like, in utero he was exposed to Photoshop 1, which is wild. It's like, aren't you the little kid from the demo files? And it's like, the demo files from 20 years ago? Yes. It's like, oh my god. So but if you wanted to say let's try beautiful sunset. I don't know if this will work. And actually
With the
my
shot?
phone, because why not?
Well, while you're trying to type that, I just want to make it clear that remove, we don't necessarily need to show it, but remove would do the traditional content aware, the traditional spot healing brush. But once it becomes available, I'll do a movie on it. But it's so much better than anything that we really have inside Photoshop right now, because it can duplicate from, using AI. It's just not just from the local image. Anyway, you've got something awesome going here. And
this is just
crazy.
And I didn't even try anything very interesting.
Didn't.
I mean, this is like my first night. So if I said like I don't know if this is going to work, but what the hell? I mean, it's all free to play, right? And so, but you get to 4 variations, much like you would in the main module of Firefly. But of course, now they're contextual to the image because the generation is contextual to the image, right? So it's actually trying to make something which harmonizes compositionally and in terms of light and color with the pixels that you're giving it. So
it's
actually like kind of not bad, right? It's kind of interesting. And again, it's this to me is like the fun point we're at with the evolution of the tech, where you get to get things you didn't necessarily want or didn't think you wanted, but which are potentially novel, potentially delightful, serendipitous. And then if we can pair that with more control when you want the more control, I think then we'll really get the wheel spinning.
Yeah, and it's important to note, well, to those who are seeing this right now, we don't have any of those edge problems. So you're not having any of the edge bleeds that we associate with content-aware fill in its magical forms inside Photoshop. It's with the exception of that one where he's got a halo there. The otherwise we've got and it's making up new hairs and so forth. I don't know if everybody's catching that one.
Yeah, that to me is what's interesting. So it's manipulated or transformed.
One of my big requests where that's concerned is to be able to upload an SVG file into the type effects. So in other words, you have a logo, you want to treat the logo. I don't know if, I guess you could upload other people's logos that way, but still, if you wanted to, if you wanted to do a treatment with something like, I guess that's kind of what this is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what this is. This is just saying like,
okay,
hey, what is a letter? But again, that's a good sign, right? Because it's anticipating that, hey, a letter is just a bunch of, paths that define a region, and a logo is similar, and it's pretty logical that you could extend the type thing into this.
But I haven't seen any transparent backgrounds on this yet.
Hey, that's right. So work to be done. We always got to.
All right. I'm not a total idiot. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Always good to know.
And check out Bilawal as well, because he's always posting super wild stuff. He just spoke at TED the other day. I'm always envious because he's posting stuff like this, and he had a After Effects demo reel when he was like 11, and so super fun to see what he's been doing. We worked together on AR at Google, and so now that he's emancipated himself from there, he's just playing around with like, well, what could I do with these emerging techniques? With technology called NeRF. See if I can scroll down. There's a thing called, I believe, Wonder Studio. It's not out yet. As I understand it, this clip is just somebody, like a guy like you or me, literally taking normal soccer footage and replacing humans with robots. And so it's just like, what the F is going on? But I love it. It's insane. I guarantee, though, when I go to my kids' high school class, design class, and show them this, they'll be like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, no, dude, it's not, yeah, okay. This is unspeakably amazing. This is tremendously excellent. Right?
Yeah,
but just like you and I take, I don't know, running water for granted, or electricity, or the ability to choose solid food. It's just like, we don't remark on it. But like, it is FM technology, which stands for effing magic. Totally wild. But yeah, he's always posting amazing stuff. Here, I think, NeRF is a technique for basically turning normal video into a 3D object. And then once you've done that, you can, of course, do all the things one would do with 3D, like do these wild like fly-ins, virtual camera moves. And then he's applying this an app called EB Synth, which came out of the work from some Adobe researchers, and using that to stylize the pixels. So again, super, super creative, like chocolate in the peanut butter times a nuclear reactor. And then it's what is going on? Yeah, just again, I love the work he's doing. I think this was like walking around Japan, with some cherry blossoms, and then put it into NeRF, again, in order to make this like manipulable 3D composition, and then stylizing the camera output of this virtual scene. And this is literally like a dude walking around with an iPhone. It's like you and your telephone made this together. So, I get a little excited. That's why I have my beverage, because I get a little hoarse talking about it. But much like we were talking about with, again, this is a different treatment of the mountain range thing, but this could just be from a normal piece of video, right? You could probably get some stock video of like, plane flying over mountains or something. And then it's like, yeah, but what if I wanted to do this like hallucinogenic virtual warp tour, right? It's super cool. Also, Meta. So, by the way, just by you looking at little ads on Facebook, somehow you funded someone doing this. Who knew? And so they have a thing called Select Anything, and people are putting that into video, and then being able to like semantically track this guy. What's interesting on the bottom one, it's like, oh yeah, this is the same footage, but there's no guy. There's no way I can keep up with it, but I do try to keep some of the interesting stuff flowing on this this blog category. So if you could just jnack.com, and then you click into the blog, there's a category for Firefly, which is a child of the AI/ML category. And here I'm showing vector recolor. Also some teasers for things Adobe wants to do with video. If people haven't seen this, definitely check that out. And honestly, it's funny that. Here. Oh, you haven't seen this? Oh my God, yeah.
No, not at all.
We got to catch up. Yeah. No, I right. It's like NAB was going on, and obviously watched this without my jabbering, but. It's like, wait, what are you guys doing? And so the company is big enough that like you cannot know what everyone else is doing, which is fine, which is a good sign in a sense that like, oh, people like, yeah, what if I took like semantic selection of a face and I could use, Firefly to generate images and I could map the colors, and, could I do things like, stylized text but actually animate that. That would be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Here, I think it's like, oh, find some B-roll. Or could we make some B-roll? And so just by analyzing the transcript, it's like, oh, maybe I could search Adobe Stock and I could, find you the footage that would pair nicely with this narration. Could I actually synthesize some, water sounds? Could I synthesize some storyboards? From the storyboards, could I synthesize a shot list? So a lot of this, it is notional, just to be setting expectations. But I think what's cool is we get the ideas out there and then people can respond and give the team some guidance on like, that doesn't seem cool, but my God, if you could just give me half of that first thing, I'd be so much more productive. And it's like, okay, cool, good to know. That's why we show that. Like this is just a silly but fun thing. Again, it's from Meta Research. They have a thing called animated drawings. And here's, just taking a cute little guy from Firefly and dropping it into this website. And so it's super wild. Let me see. I think
I had never heard of that either. Well,
yeah, right. And again, like I was saying, my teammate Lee, I can share this link if you want to put it in show notes or anything. So he'll stumble across something really cool, like, oh, this particular prompt gives you delightful characters, and then I can just swap out some piece of the prompt to get something new. That to me is a perfect example of something you'd want to use as a favorite, right? So you have this base ingredient, and then presumably you could share that out, and other people would just click it.
So wait, these were all created. Those were all created in Firefly, just using Qt 3D, whatever that was, using that prompt.
Yeah. And in fact, just to show that it's real, I'm going to click on that link. It'll launch a Firefly editing session, and then Lee's actually been making these URLs using ChatGPT, which is like a whole level of insanity I can't even get into. I can just acknowledge it and move on. But you can ask ChatGPT not only like some prompts for a cute character, but be like, oh, and by the way, like produce these complicated URLs with a bunch of random seeds. And it's like, you got it, boss. And it will then do it. So it's just like, at some point, like there will be no need of a human in the loop. It'll just make all the things. But yeah, so again, these are just compositions, and they're all in that Google Doc. So you can take these and make these little characters. And then the animation came from using, there's a website, again, it's somewhere on my blog, but it's this meta animated drawings thing where you just, I forget if you have to isolate it in Photoshop. You can. And you have to choose something like vaguely humanoid, so it has like, 2 arms, 2 legs to pair with the presets. But once you do that, then you're off and running. And here's this dude, I'm sure one of the researchers, right? And thank God I have not done this myself. My kids would just, because they're in high school, right? So their friends like find their online breadcrumbs, and they're like, "Oh my God, your dad needs to be committed." So I did not go this far, but props to this dude for going for his. So yeah. Anyway, I could do this for days. Probably.
Well, we probably shouldn't.
I
mean, it's like I hate to stop you because every single time I think of stopping you, you show me something I haven't seen before. So this is pretty thrilling. But John, I really appreciate it. Principal product manager for Firefly, which has been super exciting to tag along with for me. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks, Deke. Yeah, and thanks for everything you're doing to spread the word and, like I say, make it practical and tell us what you need. So, yeah, keep the cards and letters coming, please.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, buddy. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Bear in mind, that was just a pared down version of my interview with John Nack for the entire thing. Go to patreon.com/Deke now. Then go to Deke.com and sign up for my newsletter. I'm Deke McClelland. This has been Deke Now.